What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the final Mass Effect Andromeda video, where I show you how I became Emperor of the Andromeda Galaxy. Since my last video on Mass Effect Andromeda, I've grinded the multiplayer on this game. This has given me a plethora of research points, as well as a lot of military grade weapons, which I proceed to sell to the highest bidder in order to make some easy money. I have also gained a lot of materials, which I use to increase my drip levels. Once I finish getting my money up and set on my funny up, I head to Havaro in order to search for some useless meatbags, or as they are more commonly referred to as, Taurians. We fight our way through a nature sanctuary, ruthlessly and happily slaughtering the animals that were unfortunate enough to be living there. We eventually made our way to the Taurian camp, which was getting attacked by some raiders. We helped fend them off, and I watched this Taurian kill this guy in cold blood. The Taurian leader gave me some information on their ark. He wanted to come with me to look for it, however I told him no, since we already have enough Taurians on board. We left Havaro and headed to the planet Elidin in order to look for some Turian stasis pods. As I'm sure you can tell, this planet is quite arid, so I made the big brain move to wear all black armor. A short drive later, we arrive at the stasis pods. It turns out that the Taurians in these pods were so bad that they couldn't even survive being dropped out of a spaceship. I was so disgusted by their incompetence that I left there quicker than my dad left me when I was 6. I then talked to this Krogan who told me about how his leader was an evil dictator. So I went to go meet with them and see if they had any tips. These two Krogan bouncers wouldn't let me enter. However, with a little bit of persuasion and a lot of threats, they allowed me access to their exclusive nightclub. Once inside, I'd made my way down some stairs and found Morta, aka the Krogan dictator. She's, to put it nicely, kind of a douche, so we left there quickly. I saw some animal cruelty, and I talked to this Krogan who told me that Morta was planning to build a bomb and use it to kill innocent civilians. That was unacceptable. If anybody would be ruthlessly killing those who probably didn't deserve it, it would be me. I passed a lot of sand, and I eventually arrived at the downed Remnant ship. The Remnant inside weren't too happy about us breaking into their homes, and the scavengers had already called dibs on the drive core. The laws of home invasion and finders keepers didn't apply to me, however, and I just killed them for attempting to stop me. I then found this locked terminal. With the power of the Mass Effect wiki, I was able to open it up and make my way deeper into the Remnant ship. A little bit of parkour later, we arrived at where the drive core should have been. It turns out that someone had used the secret entrance to the ship and escaped with it. We exited the ship, and I told my crew that they actually had to do work for once, instead of sitting there and doing nothing. They scanned the planet, and they told me where the drive core was. I drove there, passing by nothing except sand. I'm not complaining, since it was still 100 times more exciting than anything I did at school. There is nothing here except a space gorilla and a space dinosaur, which I murdered painfully. The second location was even more disappointing, with only corpses that I didn't make, fires that I didn't start, and crashed ships that I didn't cause. That was okay, because the third location had some worthless beings for me to kill. It also had an ultra-advanced piece of alien technology from an alien species that could terraform entire galaxies, which was also a W, I guess. With the drive core in my possession, I went back to New Tachanka in order to confront Nakmor Morta. She wanted me to give her the drive core, and I was forced to make a hard choice. Do I allow a power-hungry, murder-loving psychopath to have the drive core, or do I give it to Morta? I gave it to her, since me having it would make it too easy to be a threat to the entire galaxy. Once I finished giving a lunatic a piece of highly destructive technology, I went back to my ship and Zoom called Avidus Rex. The coordinates of the Turian Ark were magically teleported into his head, so I went there next, hoping to cause some more misery. Once on board the Ark, I touched some buttons and I think Avidus Rex farted. I then turned off power to some more unimportant systems, like life support and the power to the stasis pods. We then found the Turian SAM unit, which was automatically inferior to mine since it had the word Turian in its name. The Turian Pathfinder, who also happened to be Avidus's best friend, was dead. He was grieving right now, however I couldn't care less, and I forced him to replace Mason and become the Turian Pathfinder, which is inferior to the human one, for reasons I've already stated. I then went to this asteroid and did my daily activities of flying my car since driving is for losers, and butchering honest, hard-working people. I then left and Skype called Reyes. He invited me to a party, and since I didn't have a galaxy to save or anything, I accepted his invitation. Once at Reyes' party, I left him and annoyed the other party-goers. I then went off in search of Reyes, hoping to annoy him as well. I found him in this closet looking for something. That something was an exotic bottle of alcohol, which I proceeded to drink in one big gulp. I then talked to this doctor, who told me about a medicine he created, which was being sold as an addictive drug by Sloan. I went to go steal the formula, so I could sell it as an addictive drug instead. Once at the doctor's lab, I killed all of the incompetent guards and held the Y button for an obnoxiously long time. Inside the building was another doctor, who told me that if I took the formula, she would die. So that's exactly what I did. She handled it pretty well. Now armed with the knowledge to make highly addictive drugs, I went back to Kadara Port and spoke to this Turian, who told me that him and his men were so bad at their jobs that they couldn't even kill a few Kett. I volunteered to help them, since it meant that I could do some more killing and get rewarded. My search for Kett to kill eventually led me to a crashed ship, where I accidentally put my car on the only survivor. I talked to him, and after he gave me the info I wanted, I quickly abandoned him and scanned some footprints. Those led me to this cave, where Sloan and the Turian showed up, and decided to stand around and do nothing while I took care of the Kett. Once I took care of them, I went back to my ship and decided to continue the main story and go after the Archon's ship. I found it, as well as the Solarian Ark, which I boarded, hoping to make the Solarians an endangered species. I scanned some dead bodies that I unfortunately didn't make, and eventually found the Solarian Pathfinder. We then left her, just as quickly thankfully, and made our way onto the ship. We killed the Kett, who were unfortunate enough to be there at that moment, and like a lost dog, the Solarian Pathfinder followed me onto the ship, this time with more Solarians. They had little to no combat training, so I sent them into the heart of a heavily defended enemy ship. We continued our way through the Kett ship, mercilessly killing any Kett that we happened to find, and despite my companions acting like little girls, we pushed on. We made our way into this room. However, the Kett did the classic lock a door and send a bunch of heavily armed soldiers after 3 intruders play. There were a lot of enemies here, and the Solarians even showed up for a little bit to pretend like they knew how to shoot guns. But because I'm awesome, we defeated the Kett and we continued on our merry way. One interrupted science lab later, we found the Archon who took away our moving privileges. In order to one-up him, I took away my living privileges, but then my AI gave them back, thankfully. I freed my squadmates and we continued our way through the ship. We eventually made our way to the Archon's Bro Cave, where we digitally touched all of his prized possessions. Once we found the one we needed, we got the location of Meridian, and we went to leave, but this half Krogan, half Kett, but twice as ugly monstrosity tried to stop us. He may have been twice as ugly, but he still died just as easily. Once he was dealt with, we went to leave, and I was given a decision. Do I save some Krogan scouts and condemn the Solarian Pathfinder to death, or vice versa? I of course chose to save the Krogans, since Solarian lives mean less to me than my own crews. We saved the Krogans and left the Kett ship, with there being no explosions unfortunately. I then went back to the Nexus to have my first, and hopefully last, meeting with the leaders of the initiative. I couldn't find a bar that I could get absolutely hammered at, so I was forced to go to the meeting sober. I attended the parent-teacher conference meeting, and it went about as well as you can expect. They constantly questioned me and my actions, and despite everything that I have done for the initiative, they refused to have my back. I would make sure that I remember this when I became Overlord of the Andromeda Galaxy. The Pathfinders did agree to support me, and gave me a technology with the dumbest name that I have ever heard. This piece of technology would...
As you approach Meridian, Our own ships can broadcast fake returns for the Tempest.
The Kett won't know which one is genuine. It will confuse their sensors and draw their ships off.
Now armed with something that I could use to put other people in harm's way for my protection, I left the Nexus and headed back to Kadara to meet with Sloane. Her arch nemesis wanted to meet up, and she was too scared to go alone, so she wanted me to tag along. I joined her because there was a strong chance that there would be violence. I drove across the wastelands and mountains of Kadara and eventually found Sloane outside of this cave. Inside was Reyes. He wanted to 1v1 Sloane pistols only for leadership of Kadara Port. She agreed, but mid-duel I noticed a sniper with his target locked on Sloane. I could have warned her, however that would have violated Rule 34, Rule 33 of the No Games Code. Never do something if it could save someone's life. With Sloane dead and Reyes in charge, I was able to expand my empire and set up an outpost on Kadara. With that out of the way, I left Kadara and I installed the special technology on my ship. I then talked to Cora, who had finally gotten a lead on the Asari arc. So we set off there, hoping to crush Cora's dreams once and for all. The place was a mess, and we almost got vented into space, but despite those hardships, we did find the Asari Pathfinder. Sarissa had stolen the Kett's incognito browser history, and in order to avoid what's in there getting out, the Kett were hunting her and the rest of the Asari arc. They didn't have enough power to make an FTL jump, and as always, they needed Sara Ryder to do everything. I made my way through the Asari arc, exterminating Kett, role-playing as a firefighter, and disabling a force field generator. Just everyday Ryder things, you know? Disabling the force field generator allowed us to discover the original Pathfinder's final moments, which showed us that Sarissa had sacrificed her in order to acquire the Kett data. We confronted her about this, and I was given a choice of whether to leak this information to the public or to keep it secret. Cora wanted me to leak the info, so I decided to do not that. With Cora now questioning her life, I headed to Meridian with the intent of securing my rule of the Andromeda Galaxy. We parachuted out of my ship since my pilots were too lazy to land, fought some Kett and even an armored gorilla, and activated the first terminal. We then fought through some killer robots that weren't that good at killing despite the name, and activated the second one. With both terminals activated, I rode a space elevator and made my way into the command center of Meridian. I watched a history presentation, and I found out that this isn't actually Meridian, and that the real one was sent into hiding many years ago. As per usual, the Kett were unhappy about something, and decided to call in a kill streak to bombard the command center. What they didn't anticipate was me also having a kill streak, which absolutely demolished their forces because they suck at the game. Then some guy who probably sits alone at lunch interrupted me. I dealt with him and his minions, and then went back to my ship, where I Skype called Director Tan. He admitted that I was right and that he was wrong for doubting me, and I made sure that I rubbed it in his face. I then probed the Scourge in order to triangulate the position of Meridian. Once I collected the data, I headed back to not Meridian in order to determine real Meridian's position. I fought through what were probably the local gardeners and hit Control-Shift-QQ in order to find real Meridian's location. It turns out that the Archon had been watching me the entire time, and once I got Meridian's position, he gave me a really bad headache that caused me to fall down. It was now up to my brother to save me. I was pretty much as good as dead. Despite being handicapped both mentally and physically, he was able to do the simple task of pushing some buttons and save my life. I opened a door and made my way back to my ship, where everyone had decided to come outside. While they all argued about useless things like how we were going to save the galaxy, I went and summoned a fleet of Remnant ships in order to go capture Meridian and make my rule official. My fleet and I traveled to Meridian, and after one really long space battle later, we entered the planet. While everyone else fought each other, I took a nice soothing drive, because sometimes you just need to take some me time. I then ruthlessly butchered some Kett. It must be opposite day, because even the inferior Pathfinders had decided to be useful. I then made my way through this facility, joyfully listening as Scott gets tortured by the Archon. I find them, and the Archon decides to attach some power cables to himself and send a giant worm after me. After fighting through more Remnant than I care to count, I disable a power relay. However, since the Remnant believe in the phrase, second is the best, I need to shut down a second one. I turn a lot more robots into scrap metal and disable the second relay. kill the Archon and his pet worm, and take my place as the Overlord of the Andromeda Galaxy. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this video, as well as all my other Mass Effect Andromeda videos, and I hope that you enjoyed watching them. If you liked this video, leave a like. It really helps me out, and subscribing would allow you to always see whenever I upload. Thanks again for watching, and God bless.